As a guitar player, I'm always like, so good evening, welcome to Red Road Journeys. I'm Charlie Chiribaka. This is Jacqueline. I almost said something else. But what we wanted to talk about was, again, change. Change is always a big part of anybody's life who, wants to live sober and they're new to the culture of recovery. And at a college I work at, a tribal college, their slogan is, welcome to such and such school where you can expect success, and doing what I do in behavioral health, it's like, well, you know what, they should have it be expect success if you're willing to sacrifice something. Because if we want to change, if a human being wants to change, you have to give up, something. I remember being a guitar student, a classical guitar student when I first started college. And I didn't even have a classical guitar, right? But I went to my first lesson with an electric guitar, and my teacher, Tom Sheely, NAU, hey Tom, I still play. He looked like he wanted to kick me out of the room there.
Always a rebel.
And then somebody in 12-step program gave me a little tiny classical guitar. It was like a rubber box with rubber bands on it. It sounded horrible, but it was enough. But in order to be a classical guitar player, I had to stop playing electric for a while. Because I wanted to do good. Of course, I'm in school. I wanted to do good grades. So I had to sacrifice something. And I had to start putting in the time and learning something new, which was very frustrating. Just starting with, the most rudimentary classical guitar exercises, which just like, I kept looking at my electric and going, oh man, I could do this, but it's like, no, you have to give something up. So change involves some kind of sacrifice. Or there's a saying too, if nothing changes, then nothing changes.
Nothing changes, yeah. No, and I mean, thinking about like my sobriety, like if I don't want to get drunk anymore, then I don't drink anymore. Which is like revolutionary in my mind when I got sober, because I never heard that before.
Wait, did you hear that?
It's the ice cream truck.
Ice cream man! Okay, sorry.
Am I crazy or are you crazy?
Did you ever chase the ice cream man?
No.
No?
No, we were too poor to like go chasing it. We didn't have money. We were just like, oh, there it goes.
Crying. Oh, that's sad. That's really sad.
No, it was a good exercise.
Go to that. We used to take
self-control.
We used to take aluminum cans, all my parents' beer cans. Will you take beer cans for a push-up?
That's sad. No, that's sad. Oh my god.
Can I have a push-up, please, for this
bucket full.
And then we put rocks in them and squash them that way.
Oh my god.
Okay.
That's sadder. No.
So what was probably the biggest thing you had to sacrifice in the first year?
The biggest thing I had to say was letting go of the places I used to go to, letting go of the people I used to go to, used to go hang out with, to go drink, the places I used to drink, the reasons I used to drink. I had to like rechange everything in my mind. I had to give that up. But I so wanted sobriety, I was willing to give it up. I was so willing to, because I was so ready to have what everybody else had in those rooms and in sobriety, and that was like some peace of mind, and that was like this understanding that like there's this higher power that has control over everything anyway. So like I was willing to give up that control. I was willing to give up that anger. I was willing to give up that unforgiveness, because I so wanted to have a peace of mind. I so wanted to like go to bed peacefully and wake up peacefully. And it didn't happen overnight. It takes a while to get there. But I was willing to take a while to get there because I wanted it so much. I was willing to sacrifice all that and give it all up. I mean, it was like 2-3 years before I started going back to family functions, because I knew exactly what was going to happen when I got there.
Hanging out with cousins and
Everybody was going to drink. And I was like, no, and everybody was mad. And I was like, that's okay. I'm willing to give that up because I don't want to drink. And I had to like set my mind into what does it mean to go do something, because at the time it was just me and my oldest daughter. What does that mean for us to go to sober functions where everybody's sober, right? And so I was willing to give that up of doing whatever with my family, knowing that like I'd go to the sober function.
You know, I think for me, one of the biggest things was it kind of made it easier, I think, was I was really bad. And then growing up in Flagstaff, a small town, that's where I did all my drinking, is I was truly embarrassed of all the shit I used to, I was possessed by the devil at my friend Charmin's birthday party. I got possessed by they literally had to they literally had to tie me up, I think, because I was blacked out,
Dang.
and throw me in the back of a pickup truck. Where
Oh
I was
my
like, I was
gosh.
possessed. And then I came to, and I was trying to act normal, you know, and everybody's looking at me all weird, like, dude, you were possessed by the devil.
Yeah.
And actually,
Yeah.
you know, a lot of parts in Sedona, there's a lot of haunted parts because a lot of Indian people were killed there, and their burials were desecrated, big time. Anyway, I'm not saying that's what it was, but
Easy to go there.
it'd be easy. Could have happened. Anyway, biggest thing for me, I mean, that was a normal drinking session for me, right? So I was, once I got sober, I was really embarrassed to be among the general population. And so it was easy for me to make 12-step programs, kind of my home. Every time I would see somebody I used to drink with, I was like, oh God, you know. And so that was one thing that made it easy. I think another thing was, after a year of sobriety, I got my GED and then
Nice.
got into college.
Nice.
So just being absorbed in that student college culture was another big thing, while still being weaved in with 12-step programs. So I basically gave up my whole, what would you say it? Actually, they called them townies at NAU. If you grew up in Flagstaff and you went to NAU, you were a townie. But I pretty much gave up pretty much every single relationship I had with people in Flagstaff proper, and my new life was with mostly students, sober students, and 12-step people.
Nice.
And so that was that was an easy thing for me to sacrifice, just because I was such an embarrassing drunk. I never trying to kiss a guy, you know. I thought he was a girl until the next day he told me, man, you was trying to kiss Dan. And I was like, what? He goes, yeah, man, they were giving you were all. And they were like, I was like, oh shit, really? I thought that was so-and-so. I used to
thought that
drink
was
a lot.
so-and-so. Well, that's really double vision.
Yeah, I used to drink a lot. So,
Yeah.
what do you think was the most easiest thing for you to sacrifice in order to change?
That's a good question, because nothing was really easy except for just the willingness to just change. Because I just didn't want what I had anymore. I was young in my sobriety, but I was already just tired. I was already just sick.
How old were you?
I was 24 when I got sober.
Okay.
Yeah, so but I was already just so full of it that I couldn't even stand to look at myself in the mirror anymore. I couldn't stand, like, I'd pass the mirror and be like, wah! You know, I was scraggly, my hair was never made. I mean, I was in ruins, and I was only 24.
So pain was a great motivator.
Pain was a great motivator for me at that time.
You know, and that's
because-
actually giving up something. If you want to give up that pain, and you know, and for some people, even giving up that pain, or boy, this was a big one. I'm sure you've seen this a lot. There's some of us have a problem giving up. Crisis. I need
Yeah,
a crisis. There has to be something going on for me to try and fix.
To try and fix.
And always addicted to crisis, or kind of magnetized to those people who are always in some kind of conflict and try to save them. I'm like, oh, I can work the steps later. I need to save this person, you know. And oh God, so
But not only that, but like, and I hear a lot of this, well, I need a job. I need a new apartment. I need a car. Well, it's just a need, because in all actuality, I want my sobriety. My sobriety comes first. So I don't, you know, I was at a place where I can say this. It may not everybody be in the same situation, but I actually moved back in with my mom and dad during my first 2 years of sobriety, because the man I was with at the time was like, later. And I was like, well, I don't know what to do. Let me move back in with my mom and dad. And I knew they were drinking, but I had already started my sobriety. So even though, and I love my parents dearly, but they were still drinking at the time. So, oh, yay, the rains. Yay. I hope you guys can hear that on the
Because you were talking shit about you.
I know.
I'm just kidding.
We didn't do it that way.
Sorry, Mom.
I know, I'm sorry. I'm sorry. I said I love you first.
Well, I think some of the more difficult things for people to change is, or to sacrifice, and changes your status as a single person, divorced, or whatever. Because they say, don't make any major life changes, but I mean that
That's
really
what got me
depends.
there. That's
Yeah.
what got me there.
I mean, that depends. If you're in a really unhealthy
Exactly.
relationship, and it's almost impossible for somebody to stay sober in the same emotional environment they used to drink. So, I know when I used to work in a prison, running a Native American TC program in prison.
What's TC?
Therapeutic community.
Okay.
It's like rehab,
okay.
but inside prison. It was one of the first Native American
Okay.
therapeutic communities in the country, and it was a big honor to get that up and running and run it for that long. But sometimes some of those guys were in really unhealthy, relationships, and everybody knew, because it was a whole community, so everybody supported each other. Everybody knew as soon as you get out of here, you go back home and you get with your narcissistic spouse. It's your borderline personality spouse. You're going to drink, and they even knew it. So they actually took the time, utilized the time when they were incarcerated to end the relationship. And actually for some people that was the safest place to end the relationship, because they didn't have to worry about people. People do
The backlash.
horrible things,
Yeah.
when they're breaking up in a relationship, busting plates over their head and then calling the cops and say, "Oh, I'm going to say you did it," and the cops will believe them.
Yeah.
I've seen that happen a lot.
Because that's the typical pattern.
Yeah,
Yeah.
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 So so even if you're in a bad situation like that, if you're in rehab, and there's a relationship you got to get out of, that's a safe place to start that process. So, and it isn't always those kind of relationships. It might be you're single and you've never been single before, and so just keeping yourself single for that at least a year. Work
first
on
year.
some stuff. That's what you're gonna have to sacrifice in order to change, or else we get in a relationship, you're just gonna go back in that same unhealthy pattern.
Yeah. Taking hostages.
Taking hostages. Yeah.
That's the way I heard it. I was like, ouch. I was really doing that.
God, I know, it's crazy. I mean, being a young person in sobriety, it's that's an extra challenge. I think is relationships, because
That's a whole other topic.
we'll definitely talk more
That'll
about
be another
that.
video in itself, another
And
video session.
And it might a series of videos. Realistically, other things to sacrifice is don't sacrifice too much. If your primary thing is drinking, all right, say it's alcohol, and you have to give that up. If you're young, at least, I wouldn't worry about quitting smoking yet. I wouldn't worry about quitting every single thing at the same
Yeah.
time, because the alcohol is the most. That's the thing that makes you powerless. Once you start, you can't stop, and has made your life unmanageable. So.
No,
Just one thing at a time.
absolutely. One thing at a time. Be mindful of what it is that we are giving up and what we are sacrificing, because sometimes we still need that cushion, that crutch to go, oh, wait, give me a minute, and for other people, it's other things like, I don't know, like chocolate or whatever. But as long as it's, again, a benign something that we're still holding on to, that's not going to be, well, my life is unmanageable because I'm drinking coffee, right?
Yeah.
My life is unmanageable because I'm gambling now. I mean, there's that difference, right? And for every family, it's going to be different. So in giving up stuff and in letting go of that stuff, sacrificing all that stuff, that also means now I get to have a new plate,
Oh, a clean one.
a clean new plate, which is like, well, what do I like to do? Figuring out who I am. And it's like, I like to go dancing at the sober functions.
If I had a plate that was my plate of relationships, there's a lot of leftovers on there.
Right?
I've been accused. I've been in some relationships. I've been accused of that.
I feel like you're just leftovers.
And then I'm like, well, that's the best part, man. Shit. Actually, we're going to come back to this topic. We're going to keep talking about this. So come back for part 2 of sacrifice in order to change. Have a clean plate. Maybe just a couple leftovers. All right.
Scraps. Later. Yeah, because that's a whole other topic. Like, that's a whole